blastmusic247.com. We're changing the industry one artist at a time.
Welcome back to Moments with Myra. Today I'm joined by a very special guest, psychotherapist Rachel Burrell. Rachel is dedicated to serving the community through her telehealth practice, where she works with adults of all ages. She believes deeply in healing power of nature and music, and her approach reminds us that every story matters. Rachel invites her clients to embrace every aspect of their lives because our journeys, with all their twists and turns, are valid and important. I'm so excited to dive into this conversation with her today. Rachel, before we dive in, what inspired you to become a psychotherapist, and what do you love most about the work that you do?
Wow. I just find people interesting. I always have. And my parents were very generous people and taught us that we're supposed to have grace and mercy toward other people. And so I guess a combination of just finding people interesting and feeling like I have some responsibility to give back and give grace and mercy. And I love what I do.
I love that. And I think too, with that attitude, it helps you to really, really be completely open to every client, not just serving one demographic, but it's giving you the open heart to be able to serve anybody. So I think that that's a beautiful thing. Now, when we say healing is your responsibility, what does that mean to you?
So healing is about restoration and overcoming. It's about rebuilding, rebooting, rebounding. And it's a very individual process. And it's not one size fits all. So no one else knows your inner secrets or what keeps you up at night or the things that shatter your self-esteem. Only you know the whole story. So, and also, it's about feeling empowered to do things independently. You know, it's part of healing. Struggle is part of the healing, and it builds your resilience, and no one else can do that for you.
And in your opinion, why is it so important that people take ownership of their own healing process rather than waiting on others?
Well, for one, you might wait a long time if you're waiting for others to do it. But, you know, so how you think and how you feel, your thinking affects how you feel, and you're the only one who knows all of that, as I said earlier. And it's up to you to decide which thoughts are self-destructive or energizing. You have to remember that everyone's fighting their own battle, and we don't always have the time or the knowledge or the means to help each other the way that we want to. So even if your friend or your spouse or your boss, you know, they're not willing to help you or change, and that's getting on your nerves, the beautiful thing about taking responsibility is that you can do what you need to do. You know, your spouse doesn't want to help you go on a journey of healing and health, then you can do that by yourself. It does not depend on whether he or she does that with you.
And I think that that's an important piece to talk about, because so many times, I think even with my life coaching, some of my clients are so stuck because they expect their partner to be motivated and jump right in to help them do it. So I think it's important for us to acknowledge that Healing is our own responsibility. And like you said, you can't wait on somebody else to do it because, honey, you may be waiting for a long time. And I think that if you're putting your expectations on somebody else, then that's going to cause another issue or another problem that you're going to have to deal with because they're not even knowing that those expectations are on them. So it is very, very important for us to be responsible. Now, for someone who is just beginning their healing journey, what are some practical first steps that they can take?
So I say start small and start simple. Just sit still, be still for a minute, and then, a lot of us have a whole lot of things going on in our head at once. And so you don't even know where to start. So you pick an area. Do you want to take care of your physical well-being or your emotional well-being, your intellectual, social, spiritual? Just pick one of those. All of those are important, but we're starting slow and simple. So it might be something as simple as taking 5 minutes outside. If you haven't been outside in a while, then you don't have to stay outside all the time. But if you just step outside in the sun, that's taking one small step.
And what role do daily choices, habits, and self-awareness play in the healing process, in your opinion?
So I think knowing that we have a choice is empowering. So often we feel like we're just a victim, that there's all these things that are happening to us. And we're living in times that are very frightening, and it just feels like, wow, what can I do? I feel helpless. But knowing that we have some choice in something helps to empower us. And routine gives us some predictability. So that gives us just some reassurance, some steady grounding, provided that we're talking about good, healthy routines. Sometimes we need to change those unhealthy routines.
Yes.
So that we are taking care of ourselves and that we can hear more clearly. But having some routine just helps us feel a little more grounded. And then self-awareness is huge for me. I'm a big believer in paying attention to your body and what your body is telling you. So sometimes when you're sitting still and take an assessment, you can ask yourself, well, what's going on in my body right now? Is it tense, hungry, lonely, tired? What does my body need right now in that moment? And then our body might tell us, okay, I'm tense. Then you can go further. What's making me feel tense? Or what can I physically do to make that tenseness go away? So that so self-awareness is key. And then also, paying attention to your thoughts and the things we say to ourselves. If you wouldn't say it to someone else, don't say it about yourself.
Ooh. Mm-hmm. That's
But you got to be aware that you're doing that. And sometimes we're not. Our lives are so busy. We just keep going and putting all this stimuli into our brains. And we're not aware how we're sabotaging ourselves.
I love your thought process about the self-awareness part because I find that sometimes that's the hardest part, even for me, to work on my own healing. Because when we sit with ourselves and we're listening to our bodies and we hear all of those things that we've been so busy trying not to hear, and we have to face it, sometimes it can be a hard task. So what I like to do is I like to listen to music. So how can practices like being out in nature and music, which you value, help support someone's healing?
So I got to tell you, I got to go outside yesterday. This is about my favorite time of year, the fall and all the beautiful colors. Um, but I was just sitting there, and I had my feet in the grass, and I was watching the leaves, and how slow they went down and everything. Now, in the past, I would have thought, you don't have time to be sitting here watching leaves go down. But I just felt this incredible peace, and listening to the wind chimes and the birds chirping and all of that just helps you to just focus and get your mind off of every other thing and just listening, and nature has its own kind of music if you're just listening to that. But also, I mean, with music, there have been many studies of how healing music is, and that's whether you play the music yourself. And by the way, it's never too late to take up a new skill, like learning how to play the piano or the drums. Drumming there's a lot of research about drumming and how that is relaxing, and it can kind of help regulate your heartbeat. I think listening to lyrics, really listening to what is being said in the lyrics. A lot of times we don't do that either. We're listening to the beat, but sometimes there's just some really good advice and really good wisdom in the lyrics of music. And it also is such a universal language, and it's beyond words. And so there's so many things that are hard to express verbally.
Yeah.
But sometimes you can hear it in the music, and the dynamics of the music, and how the rhythms and the notes, how they're arranged together, and where the accents are and where the subtle pieces are. Music is just very healing, no matter what genre it is.
I agree with that 100%. And that reminds me of growing up and listening to gospel music. That was kind of our routine every morning, listening to gospel music just to kind of get the day started.
Mm-hmm.
And as a little girl, you don't think much about it. It's just a routine. My mom and dad, we would listen to the gospel music, and in our household, we listen to the obituaries, and that's how we would start our day. But you are so right, thinking about the lyrics in some of the gospel songs, and just even in regular songs, and how it just speaks to your heart. And sometimes it allows you to say the things that you feel like you can't say, but you can say, hey, listen to this song, and get an idea of what I'm going through, what I'm thinking, so it's almost like a cheat sheet of sorts.
Yes.
Now, I want to ask you, because I had a client that I was dealing with that was very, very resistant to the things that I was suggesting to try to get them on track. Sometimes people believe that it's someone else's job to fix them, a partner, family member, or even a therapist, their life coach like myself. How do you address that mindset? Because I was starting to get frustrated, because I was kind of like, okay, you reached out to me for help, but everything that we try to bring up, or everything that I try to suggest to you to get you back on track, you're resistant to it. So how do you handle that mindset?
Well, I just to remember how scary change is, and even if you're uncomfortable, at least that making a change is a whole new thing, which can be scary. And then exploring the resistance, in a compassionate way. But I think it's okay to say, okay, I'm feeling some resistance now. Can you tell me what's going on? And see what that resistance is. Is it that they don't really understand what they need to do, or are there some other underlying reasons that they really can't do it? Not that they're just being resistant and rejecting your wisdom, but that they really don't understand. So we just can't assume anything about anyone. But I tell my clients, even when we first start, that yes, we have this hour of therapy that, you know, you can talk about your story, you can talk about feelings, and then we can do some problem solving. But then there's follow up. I can't be with you all week. And so change involves sometimes new daily habits, you know, and so just saying that up front that is work.
And that's how we kind of got back on track, because when I felt myself starting to kind of react to the resistance that I was feeling, you know, I was kind of real with them and I said, look, I'm here to help you and I want us to push through this resistance.
Yes.
So I changed the subject, started talking about something a little bit lighter or whatever. And I said, okay, we'll swing around the corner again and come back to it. And I found that when we changed the conversation a little bit about something a little bit lighter than what they had going on, that it did make them feel a lot more relaxed. And we ended up ending the session on a really, really good note and had some things set up for next steps and follow-ups. But I tell you, I just really, really wanted to see what your thought process was, because that was the first time that I had had someone that was just so down in that energy that they were just so resistant to everything. And I just want to make sure that I'm giving each client that I work with the best care, the best, you know, help that I can possibly give. And I'm always open to more seasoned people as yourself that's been doing your job as a therapist. You know, I'm always open to new ideas and new ways to kind of break through those walls and break the resistance so that we can still maintain a good relationship and they can trust me, you know, because that's important.
Well, and as we talked about earlier about responsibility, remember they're driving. You know, we're going along as a companion, a cheerleader. Um, but if they're not ready, we can still be their cheerleader,
Gotcha.
you know, and but we can't want something more for someone than they want for themselves or than they're ready for.
Yes, I said I need to get a plaque made that says that I can't want it more for you than you want it for yourself, because that's so true. So, what are some of the common roadblocks you see when people resist taking responsibility for their healing?
Well, nothing changes. Nothing's resolved. You know, you keep repeating the same mistakes, the same cycle, and then you get in this cycle of disappointment and frustration, or, you know, you're staying in your pain, you know, and it might affect your relationships, you know, that people grow tired of, well, you keep complaining, but why aren't you doing anything? You know, so not taking some responsibility means that things stay the same. That's my thought. And I'm sorry, was there more to that question?
No.
Okay. Okay.
And how can someone avoid confusing responsibility with self-blame? Because I get that a lot. Like before we can even get to the healing part, I have to let them know that, you know, you're not to blame. You know, we're all made up different ways. We have different triggers and different things. So how can someone avoid confusing responsibility with self-blame?
So I would say responsibility is energizing, empowering, whereas self-blame is draining. You know, self-blame is that you're just being mean to yourself, basically. You know, whereas responsibility is saying, this doesn't feel good, so I'm gonna do what I can to try to feel better. You know, so yeah, that self-blame is, you know, and who knows where that comes from. It, you know,
Mhm.
from our childhoods, our belief, but it keeps you from even believing that things can be better for you or that you deserve this, or from having hope because you have so much self-blame that you don't even think that you can have it or do it. Whereas taking responsibility says, even if it wasn't my fault, it's my responsibility. And you see that, for instance, with physical illness. Okay,
Mhm.
it's not somebody's fault that they get diabetes necessarily, but it's their responsibility then to do what they need to do. Watch their diet, take their medication, or whatever. It's not somebody's fault that they have ADHD,
Mhm.
but it's their responsibility to learn ways to, accommodate some of those difficulties, or make it work in their favor, you know.
And that leads me to my next question. How does taking responsibility for your healing impact your relationships with others?
Mm. So there's a lot of ways that can go. I don't know that people do this intentionally, but some of the people closest to us don't want the routine to change.
Mhm.
And sometimes if you change, then it changes things for them. But sometimes taking responsibility means saying no. It means I'm going to do this, what I got to do for myself, not in an angry or vengeful way, but I want to do what I need to do for my own healing. Um, but it can also um, um, mean, finding new people in your life, as
Mm.
you start to grow and change. Sometimes the people in your lives are no longer in alignment with what you're going to do. And
Yes.
again, it's not to put them down or anything. It just means that you're on different paths, and that's okay.
Yeah, I am so glad you said that because I am a big believer in timing and alignment and outgrowing your space, sometimes outgrowing people, friends, partners, sometimes even family members. And I'm also a big believer in having a selfish period. We have to have a selfish period sometimes to set those boundaries and reinforce them and make sure that we're good, because like they used to say, if mama not good then nobody's good. So we have to really take a moment and do a self check and look at those boundaries and redefine what that means in that moment. So what's one piece of encouragement you'd give to somebody listening right now who feels stuck or overwhelmed in their healing journey?
Well, I go back to keeping it simple. Just keep it simple. That's been my theme throughout. And sometimes doing nothing is what is needed until your head clears. You don't always want to make decisions or act when your head is full of stuff.
Mhm.
So simple is better than complex. Just be still. And I add one other thing, and this
Absolutely.
is for helpers, caregivers,
Yes.
people that we have to remember that we are not set here to fix people. That is not our job, you know. And so, it's the old thing about the butterfly, and if if um, if the butterfly is not able to go through the whole process of coming out of that cocoon, they can't fly. And so, when our heart feels heavy for someone, we can pray for them, we can encourage them, but we have to let people have their own struggle.
And sometimes that is so hard to do, especially when it's somebody that you love and you look at the situation and you're like, well, I can see the end game. I can see what it is you need to do. I can see that you need to turn right instead of going left, instead of allowing them to find their way. Because I find when we allow people to find their way, then it sticks with them compared to me giving you all of the information for you to get to the end game. You need to do your own work to find your way, because then it sticks with you. And I feel that that'll allow you to elevate to the next level of healing in some ways. So I think that that's really important. And I really, really appreciate you bringing up that information about caregivers too, because it's hard and it can be such a vicious cycle, when you're a caregiver of a person and you're getting frustrated because 1001 things are going on, and even though you don't mean to be harsh, but sometimes you are, because you're like, well, why can't you just do it my way? I can see that this will be the best way to do it. So it's a job. It's a job, and I commend anybody that's a caregiver as their profession, or even with their own family or friends, because it's a job.
That's a really tough and needed job.
Yeah, it really is. Well,
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I can remember times in the past when someone has said to me, well, all you have to do is,
that part.
And that phrase just drives me crazy, because if that was all I needed to do, I would have done it.
Exactly. And
something here now complicated than we know.
And I think too that people need to get out of the mindset that everybody thinks alike.
Exactly. Yes.
I think that's the major thing too, because you think, well, if just because I think that this is purple and Myra says that it's lavender, I mean, both are true. So I think that we have to get out of that mindset of everybody thinks alike, everybody's built the same, everybody's going to follow the same path to get to the same place, So I think that that's important to acknowledge as well. Well, Rachel, I want to thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. I love you, love you, love you to death, and appreciate all of your knowledge and stuff that you brought to us today. Let everybody know how they can reach you, your website, and all of that good information.
Okay, so you can go on my website, which is simply RachelBurrell.com. I spell my name RACHELLE. So it's RachelBurrell.com. Or you can call me at 336-837-4499. And I want to thank you, Myra. It's just great to see what you're doing, how you're evolving and growing and helping others to evolve and grow. And I thank you very much for having me on your podcast.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate all of the support that you give me. One question before we close out. As far as your patients and stuff that you see, is there an age limit? Do you see all ages, or what's the ages for the patients that you see?
Now, I see all adults.
Okay.
I no longer see children and adolescents, even though I love them. But yeah, so age 18 and up. Okay. A lot of my clients are coping with some kind of physical illness, and so a lot of it is about coping with illness. But I also do a lot with anxiety and depression, and along with that, there's often underlying trauma. And then also grief.
Okay. All right. I wanted to put that out there. So if anybody were looking for a good therapist or needing your services, we could kind of narrow it down so that they can see if you would be the right fit for whatever it is that they think that they need.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining me today on Moments with Myra. A special thank you to my guest psychotherapist, Rachel Burrell, for sharing her insight and reminding us of the importance of embracing every part of our story. I hope today's conversation encouraged you to see the power of healing through connection, nature, and music. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, share, and leave a review. It truly helps this community grow. Until next time, take care of yourself, and remember, your story is valid, your journey matters, and your healing is possible. Have a great day.
Everybody can't reach like, everybody can't dream like, everybody can't be like, everybody can't be like you. Everybody can't reach like, and everybody can't dream like, everybody can't be like, everybody can't be like you. I understand you got your own thing going, merely on down the stream, you better keep on rowing. They try to knock your self-esteem, you better keep on glowing. Don't let nobody in between that future you be knowing. So here's my message to you: ain't no person on earth that can outdo you. Be yourself unto yourself, you'll be honored that you knew you. Only you can be a rock when it ain't no one else around. And if you don't love yourself, then the only way is down. But I believe in you, I see you got some dreams in you. Full speed ahead, I see you got some steam in you. Just keep chugging away, be grateful for every day that you get to bless the world with such a beautiful face. Let your shadow make the chase, let your heart dictate the pace, let your mind give you the strength, and let your spirit run the race. I bet your ancestors cheering, seeing the path you clearing. Nothing worth fearing, every lesson worth hearing. But every now and again they try to break you. Lean into them wounds even though they might be painful. And when they heal the scars, that's when you gon' see a breakthrough. I'm praying that you make do with every resource within your grasp. Multiply it forth and be generous with your math. Kindness in your hand, willing to understand that every single second you get is another dance, and every single moment you breathe is another chance to do something you love, to always rise above. Parting for the past, don't let that trauma beat you up. Be gentle with your mental and everything you done been through. End of the day, you're the reason I grabbed a pencil, so I could draw you up a motivational stencil, tracing the inspiration, make way for the destination. Cause trust me, I can see all of the places that you're headed, and I'm here to let you know you ain't gonna never reach a dead end. Everybody can't reach like, everybody can't dream like, everybody can't be like, everybody can't be like you. Everybody can't reach like, and everybody can't dream like, everybody can't be like, everybody can't be like you.